blue, whatever you want it to be. Obviously, you want to use the red to really bring people's eyes to the areas that need attention, like the overdue customers here, overdue payments. But we have quite a few, like I mentioned, out of the box. You can use these, or you can take them, make changes to them and use them, or you can simply start from scratch. There's a lot of flexibility with these dashboards. You can link out to all kinds of things, web pages and wiki pages. A lot of people like to link out to like YouTube, link it to a particular video, maybe like for training. And of course, you can always use any information from within Acumatica in your dashboards. Also want to point out right up here at the top, you might have noticed we have this search box. Our search functionality, it returns really fast results, makes it really easy to search across your whole application. And all you have to do is just start typing. As soon as you start typing, it starts returning results, and you can just keep typing to narrow down your search. And you'll notice right now I'm on this tab for menu items, so it's searching through my menu items, but I could come over here to search for a particular transaction using that exact same search term. So I don't need to type in my search term again. All I need to do is go to a different tab. If I wanted to search through my help, I could just come right over here to help. It's using, again, it's using that same search term, searching through help. And over here on the far right, if I want to search through all my file names that are in the system, I can just click on files. So really nice, fast, easy search.
If they wanted to search a transaction by a dollar amount or something, they could search it by a number, correct?
Correct. Yep. The other thing that you can do to get help is if you're on a particular transaction, I'm just going to go to an invoice just as an example. We also have this little question mark icon up at in the upper right. And when you click on that, it brings up help specific to the page that you're on. So in this case, for invoices. At the very bottom of the page, anytime you click on this icon, the very bottom of it will show you this help dashboard. And if you click on that, you'll be able to find all the Acumatica help files. So a lot of quick ways to get help on things. I'm going to go over here to sales orders. Just want to point out a couple of things. First, about our quick menus. So every time you're in a workspace, you'll see either a quick menu like you're seeing up here, but this is a toggle. So I can click on this and see everything that I have access to. So you might only have just a couple of items here on your quick menu, just things that you use all the time, but you can quickly access everything that you have access to. The tiles up here that you see at the top, they're really meant to be like one-click type of functionality. So you can really quickly enter, for example, a new sales order, a new quote, new customer, a new payment. We have different sections on each one of our menus. So your reports are all under the report heading. Preferences for each workspace are right over here. One thing I do want to point out is this processes section. So the processes section lets us create batch transactions, and those batches can really easily be put on an automated schedule that performs that specific task at a designated interval. And we'll be talking a little bit more about processes and how you can use this processes section.
Will your processes section go with your CRM, or is this just based off your standard accounting inventory system?
It's across the board.
Now, how much are these fields customizable?
They are like very customized.
So if you pull up in the sales orders and we need to have a customizable base to what we sell and what we do, all the fields are customizable to what we need them. Like just to give you an example, Nancy, one of our products, we sell it by the foot, per linear foot, and it comes in, like 10, 12, or 16 feet. So we would need to identify, how many feet we have, and that's where we could calculate the cost and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so that would actually just be a unit of measure, so that wouldn't require any kind of customization at all. You can set up as many different units of measure as you want. But that being said, so I'm here on a sales order, just as an example. You can change any of this. You can remove fields, add fields. You can change the look of this. You can, move these fields around any way you want to. It's very, very customizable.
Okay. The next question is, I have for that, and I may be jumping the gun. If I am, please forgive me. So we have an item set in inventory, and let's say I'm going to use our vertical light cove. We have 12 8-foot bars that we need, which is a total of 96 feet. So if I want to go ahead and I scan, because we want to use barcode scanning, is your system customizable with barcode scanning to use that, so I could take full inventory as well as use it for disbursement?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll show you some examples of, like, we have barcoding on a pick list, but if you just have a handheld, you don't even have to have anything really fancy. But if you even just have a handheld scanner, you can, use it in Acumatica.
All right, beautiful.
Yep. All right, just a couple of other things I want to show you just from a navigational point, or actually this is more of just base functionality within Acumatica. But one thing I wanted to point out is just these lists. You'll see these lists or grids in Acumatica quite a bit, and it makes it really easy to sort and filter transactions, find a particular transaction in Acumatica. So you'll notice across the top are these different tabs, and these are configurable by user. So different users could have these tabs, and these tabs are really just filters of all of your sales order records. But for example, if somebody only wants to see the orders that they entered, they could have it like this, my orders, and they just click on it to see the ones they entered. Or if they only want to look at quotes or whatever the case. But if they're searching across all the records in the system, they can come over here to all records, and then you can use the headings. So for example, if I just click on the heading of status, like let's say I only want to see my open, anything that's open, all I have to do is click on the header to create a quick filter. And I can do
jump
things.
in and ask you a question?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Nancy.
No, that's great.
What you're showing here is very interesting here, but the question that I have for you is, Rick or Matt, please correct me if I'm wrong with this. What we do is they send out the customer would send us a quote based on our sheet.
Yep.
And then we would send them back a, Rick, help me out.
Sales order.
What is it called?
Sales order.
Sales
A sales order, right.
Quote.
And then,
quote, yeah.
And then what they do is they respond back to us saying yes, and then we send them back it's like it goes back and forth. We're double checking. Quote, a sales order, and then an invoice. Can your system just take all of that information and automatically change it from a quote to a sales order to an invoice without us having to re-enter all the information over and over and over?
Absolutely, yes. So once you have it in the quote format, you just convert it to a sales order, and once the sales order is complete, you create the invoice, and we can actually automate the creation of the invoice, so you don't even ever have to see it. It just automatically gets generated and emailed to the customer.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, so all I wanted to point out here, it's just easy to find your transactions. You can sort, you can filter, like if you're looking for a particular date, you can filter it down to a date range, things like that. Let's just look at one of these open sales orders. So one thing that's really nice about Acumatica, just from an adoption standpoint, is anytime you look at a form, like this is a sales order form, they all have a real similar look and feel, so it's very easy for people to quickly come up to speed. One thing I do want to point out is in this upper right-hand corner, I just want to talk about these different buttons that you see up here. So this notes field, this is specific to the transaction that you're on. So I'm on a sales order for this particular customer. Here's the sales order number. If I come up here and put in notes, it's going to attach these notes to this particular sales order. And these are free-form notes. You can just put in, I think you have like 300 characters. You can just enter any kind of a note that you want to. This is free-form notes. So when you record notes here, it's not putting down like a date and time stamp. It's not recording who put that note in there. So very much free-form. If you want something a little more structured, under this activities button, you can add any kind of activity that might have affected the sales order. Maybe you called the customer about something, or maybe you left them a message, any kind of note, anything like that that you want to add. So if you add a note from here, it immediately tracks the date and time as well as who entered this particular note. So you have a trail, and then down here you have a huge space for entering any kind of notes.
So in other words, it's like your CRM system. It ties into the CRM.
It does tie into the CRM, yes.
So this way you have full communication of every customer at what particular time and what reason for.
Correct. Yep. So if you use the activities button, it does record date and time and whoever entered that particular activity. You can also add in events, like if you have a webinar that you sent the customer to, something like that. We also have this task feature, and really the only thing that's different about tasks versus other activities is that you can assign them to other people. So it still puts in a date, it still puts in an owner or whoever actually entered it, but now I can come in here and actually assign this to someone else in the company, and then they'll see it on their to-do list.
Very nice.
The files button, in Acumatica, you can attach pretty much any kind of file to any page in Acumatica, and it's really easy. You just click on the files button. I can click browse, go out to my hard drive or go out to a network drive, whatever, click upload. As well, if I just drag something onto this page, it automatically attaches it. So you can see there's a one afterwards, just meaning there's one file attached.
All right, then here's the question. You send out a sales order. Is your sales order sent out, you guys produce them automatically as a PDF?
Yes. So you're getting a little ahead of me, but let's just say I go here and email this order. It could be a sales order or a quote.
Now, would it be the email, if we're sending out a sales order and or a quote, can we have it designated from a specific email address versus the user login?
Yes, so that's actually what this is doing. When I go down here, it's taking that designated email. So it's not asking me who I want to send it to, it's taking the designated email.
No, not who I want to send it to, it's who I want to send it from.
That's actually up to you. You can decide if you want it to come from a system address or from the person who's logged in.
Okay.
So the way I have this set up, it's coming from the person who's logged in, but you can do it either way.
All right, so let's say it's coming from info or quote at Dorrhouzzer, because we're sending out a quote. So we'll come at quote from Dorrhouzzer. Now, it automatically produces a PDF, correct?
Yes. So if I go up here to my activities, let me just show you real quick. So now I have an activity out there. Because it saves every time I send an email, it saves it. So you can go right back. This is the actual activity or the actual email that got sent to them. So this is the body of it, which is completely configurable. And the file that was attached is right up here.
Okay, so can we have that file also saved onto a hard drive versus saving it just there?
It would
Or
take
is
a
that
little bit of a customization, but yes, you could do that. I mean, you can always just go over here and say printed and then save it to your hard drive.
all right? So we would go back and have to redo it ourselves. Now, these sales orders, I'm assuming, are all customizable to how we want it laid out.
Yes, so this is just an out-of-the-box example of what a sales order looks like, but this is completely configurable. I mean, you don't have to have these colors. It doesn't have to be boxy like this. You can completely configure it the way you want to see it.
Okay.
Yep, this is just an example, and you'll notice that on all of our forms. All right, just wanted to touch on these other two buttons for notifications and customization. So these are not going to typically be visible to an end user. You're seeing these two buttons just because I'm logged in as an admin. They're much more system administrator type functionality. But notifications, this button is used to set up email notifications. You can set them up based on certain conditions on a page. Like I have an example here of a back orders notification. So what this is saying is, here's the email that I want to send, and here's the conditions that have to be met. And this one's really simple, right? If the status is equal to back order, then send this message to these people. So it's pretty straightforward, but on this conditions tab, you can get very elaborate. Like you could say, you know, it has to meet this and this and this and this in order to send it. So you can get really, really specific on your notifications.
So you're saying your notifications as well could go out to the end user, to the customer, to say, hey, John Doe, you've ordered 10 cases of Lycove and 3 of them back order.
Correct.
With an
Yes.
expected date, and we can put an expectation date on there.
So yep. Yeah, like you can do things like this is a link right back to the actual order, but you could just do it back to items, or, you know, you could list out the items on the order, things like that. And you can do the same thing, like when an order ships, you could just set up an automatic notification to go out saying your order just shipped, things like that.
So that was the next thing you're getting ahead of me, is concerning notifications for shipment, as well as shipment receivables, you know, like they sign off once they get their shipment.
Yes, so anytime you can tie it to a field on a page. So yeah, like for example, this one was based on the status field. The status changes to something else, then send off a notification. So it all queues off of some field on the page, is basically how the notifications work.
Okay.
Okay.
Gentlemen, so far so good.
Okay, and then customizations, we kind of talked about this already, but the customization button just lets you make changes to the application, and it starts right from here. You would just go in there, start a new, they're all called projects. You create a new project, you make the changes, save it, publish it, and your changes are visible.
All right. I guess the next part we would definitely, that I feel that is important to us, is the finance aspect, and then we need to look at the inventory.
So let me just take you through basically how it would work to just go through the sales order flow, and then we'll jump over and look at some inventory. Is that okay?
Go for it.
Everybody good with that? Okay. So a couple of different ways to enter transactions in Acumatica. So I could just come up here and create a new sales order just by clicking on the plus sign. I can also go back to my workspace and just click on new sales order. Either way works. So pretty simple. All you do is just start typing and you can get to your customer. We also have some lookups. So you could use this little magnifying glass if you want to go do like searches on a customer, or scroll through your customers. But for most people, they want to just start typing, so it's pretty easy. So as far as the header of a sales order, that's it. All you have to enter is your customer. You could come in here, put in the PO number if you want to. Out of the box, that's not a required field. You can certainly make it a required field. Down here as far as entering the order details, we have a few different ways you can do it. One thing I want to point out is this add stock item button. And one thing that's nice from here, I mean, you can do different lookups across your inventory and whatnot, but one thing that's kind of nice is you can also see the customer's purchase history just by using this little sold since field. So when I click on this, it's showing me what this particular customer back here, what he has purchased since, well, in this case, it just defaults 3 months back. But you can go in here and say, well, I want to see what they've purchased in the past 6 years, right? And then it shows you everything going back, everything that they've purchased. So that's kind of cool. And then right from here, I mean, you can come in and you can put in quantities saying, you know, they want so many of this, so many of this, so many of this, and then just add and close to add it to the order.
Question for you on that. If you select a product that was, let's say, from 2 years ago that they hadn't ordered, will it automatically give them the updated pricing, or will it stick with what they bought?
It's going to give them current pricing, but you're going to be able to see the price they paid. So if they paid, you know, $5 for something, you're going to know that that's the pricing they got. So you can, you know, you can override it and give them that pricing, but it's going to pull the new pricing.
Okay.
So you will be able to know. If you get orders like big orders on a spreadsheet, we have a really nice little import functionality for your order details. You can use this load records from files to just quickly pull in like a long list of items. And of course, you can always just come down here and manually enter some items. So I entered a few items in here just to use as my example today. So I want to show you how I kind of set this up for you guys. And I mean, I'm sure it's not exactly the way you guys work, but I was kind of taking a stab at it here. All right, so I set up this Mirage Phantom Frame Kit. This is actually going to be what you sell to your customers. So this is really the end item. So this is going to be 3 pieces, actually. This is a kit that's going to contain the frame itself. It's going to contain this frame assembly kit, and it's also going to contain a fastener kit. So that's the 3 pieces that make up this Mirage Phantom Frame Kit. This fastener kit that you see right here is made up of fastener 100 and 200. So that one's pretty simple. My frame assembly kit is made up of the clip, the corner, and these 2 screws down here, the 1 inch and the 3/4 inch screws. And I'm going to be talking more about inventory and assemblies in just a minute, so I can show you how I set up like these different kits and how I built the assemblies. But for right now, just know that that's kind of what I put in each kit. So I'm going to go ahead and say somebody, you know, this is a Mirage Phantom frame kit or frame that somebody ordered. I don't know if you guys actually call them kit as a finished good. I just wanted to get it across that in Acumatica, this would actually be a kit, and we'd go pull the individual items and put them in a box. Am I kind of on the right track here? Is that what you guys, how you guys do it?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm just gonna do one. I set a $700 price. I had no idea what it would actually be. I just threw that out there, so it's probably way off. Close? Okay.
You're way off
Way
by
off.
$10.
Oh, that's pretty good. I'm good with that. All right, so I've got my order in here. I can come over here to shipping settings. Now we do have some automated shipping built right into Acumatica for FedEx and UPS and the US Post Office, but I'm guessing if you guys have these big frames, you're probably using some kind of freight. But I just wanted to point out the integrated shipping because, I don't know, maybe you send like parts or smaller things sometimes. Do you guys use FedEx or UPS at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so for those smaller items, you could definitely do that. If it's big, like a frame, you could have this set up with the different freight services that you use. I just called this local just to use as an example. So you could just come in here, pick your the way that this is going to ship, I'm going to go ahead and save my order. We also have automated credit cards. I don't know if you guys accept credit cards for anything.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so we do have that built right in. You can just set up your payment method as like, you know, Visa or whatever the case. I don't think I have one set up right now. I wasn't quite prepared for this. But it lets you just authorize or actually run the credit card either way, and it just brings back this processing status.
So now that's built in with your software?
Pardon?
Is that built in with the software, or is that like an additional purchase to be able to process the credit cards?
Well, it's built in. We use the authorize.net gateway. So you would still need your merchant account, of course. So you would link your merchant account right into Acumatica, and then you're pretty much ready to go.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. We talked a little bit about this already, but if you had entered a sales order and you wanted to send them like an order confirmation, you know, pretty easy, like I did earlier, you just go to the actions button and you just say email the sales order. And it can be any form that you want to send. It doesn't have to be a sales order. You can go and change that.
Would it be an invoice?
No, we're just entering the sales order right now, so it would be like an order confirmation. But I can show you how you would send the invoice.
All right.
All right. So when you're ready to actually get this thing shipped, our Mirage Phantom frame, all I do is I use my actions button again, and I just say create the shipment, which is going to create me a shipment page. Verify your warehouse and your shipment date. Do you guys have multiple warehouses, or is it just one?
One.
Just one.
One.
Now one.
Okay. So you wouldn't actually get that pop up. I just have multiple warehouses set up in my demo environment, so it prompts me to make sure that I am shipping from the right warehouse. All right, so this creates a shipments page for me. Lots of different things you can do from here, but what I really want to point out is this pick list. So if you print out your pick list, even though what we ordered was this Phantom Mirage frame kit, it's telling us to pick these 3 items, right? So we need the frame itself, we need the frame assembly, and the fastener kit. And you can see the barcoding. You can put it right on your pick list. Make sure you're pulling the right item. So I was kind of close, huh? I got the frame kit.
Very nice.
Cool. Couple of things. So these are like, you know, kits within a kit. So you'd go pull these 3 items, put them in a box, get them out the door. Let's see, what else did I want to show you on the shipments page? So that's about it. Once you have those 3 items, you got them in a box, got them picked and packed. All you have to do is confirm the shipment. You can print labels depending on who this is getting shipped to. Of course, if you're using our integrated shipping, the labels just, you know, we go out to whatever provider you picked, pull down the labels, and you can print those exact labels. So it kind of depends on how you're shipping, but one way or another, you can always print the appropriate labels, return labels if necessary. But if everything's good to go, all you do is come up here and just say confirm the shipment. Like this thing's ready to go out the door. And at this point, this is when I can actually create an invoice, right? It's shipped, it's out the door. I can actually create an invoice for it. There's a couple different ways to do it. I can come up here and prepare my invoice, and that would prepare an invoice just for this one particular shipment. But I can use my processes tab that we talked about a little earlier. So if I come over here to under my processes header, go to process shipments, you'll see I have this action field. And when I drop down this action field, you'll see there's a whole bunch of things. So for example, if I wanted to print out my pick list, like for the whole day, I could go print out a bunch of pick lists. But we're talking about our invoices. So if I wanted to prepare a whole bunch of invoices at once, I can just select my action to prepare invoice, and I see everything that's shipped and ready to be invoiced. And from here, you could use these different filters. So if there was like one big customer and you wanted to just invoice your big customer, you could go pick that particular customer. You can also do it by dates. And you could be picky here, like you could say, well, I want to create these 2 invoices. So all I would do is just check a couple of them and click on process. Or if I leave them all blank, I can click on process all. But if I don't want to be bothered with this whole creation of invoices, I can just come up here and put it on an automated schedule. So this just lets me say, you know, probably in this case, we'd want to use daily, but you have a bunch of different options. But you just, every day I want to prepare invoices. And on this hours tab, we have this every field. So you could say like every hour or every 15 minutes, whatever interval you want to use, just based on how often you ship. So you could just set up this little automation schedule so that on the hour, you know, whatever my interval is, maybe every hour or 3 hours, whatever the case, it's going to go out and basically run this process for you automatically. You don't even have to think about it. And then you can use other processes, like if I go back over here under my processes section and go down to process invoice and memos, I can set it up to just automatically email my invoices, or I can queue them up to be printed. Maybe you have customers that still want their invoices printed and sent. You can queue that up.
But the takeaway, Nancy, is they can, if they set these processes up once, as they're creating shipments, this invoicing scenarios can happen just in the background, daily, weekly, hourly, whatever they set their schedules up. And then if they follow up that, say, hey, every time we make an invoice, we want it to do this. We either want it to print or email. They could automate that too.
Exactly. Yep. So you don't even have to touch it to get it out the door.
All right, I got a question for you. Let's say we set up a quote form on our website. Can that be tied in to automatically come into you guys, into your system?
A quote form on your website, yes. So it would take a little bit of, well, what's your website built on? I guess that's the first question.
Right now, well, upcoming, I'm going to be doing it on, oh my God, what is it called?
Is it like Magento or BigCommerce or?
No.
WordPress?
WordPress, thank you.
He's going to have a WordPress site.
Oh, it's just going to be a form. It's not like a store. Not like a.
No, I'm not doing a store.
Oh, it's just a form. Yeah.
So it exports into you guys.
Yes, so we could just set up, we could just use web services to pull the information from the form into Acumatica. Yeah, that would be a really easy one. I thought you were talking about like a shopping cart, but it was just going to be a quote.
No, we're not doing that. No.
Okay, got it. Perfect. Okay, speaking of your website, so this is pretty funny. When I was first talking to Troy about you guys, I went to your website and I'm like, why would they put that picture on their homepage? There's not even a door in that picture. Yeah, it was pretty funny. And then, after a while, I was like, oh, wait, there is a door.
Did you read it?
It was pretty funny. I wasn't going to fess up to that, but.
It's what you can't see.
Exactly. That was really cool. I mean, that kind of door is just beautiful. I was like, wow. Very impressed.
Well, let me know when you're ready for your shipment. We'll place it to you and send it out to you.
Yeah, when I'm building my dream home, I'll let you know. All right, let's talk a little bit about the other side of the house. Let's talk about inventory a little bit and how inventory looks over here. So I'm just clicking on my...
Nancy, can I go back one thing real quick?
Sure.
The order of things might be a little bit different with us. We're taking payments before we make the order.
Oh, yes, you can apply prepayments. So once you have the order in, You enter the order and you just don't apply a prepayment against it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if I was on a sales order, let me just show you real quick. So if I was on my sales order, I could go over to my, oh shoots. Let me just throw something in here real quick. Doesn't have an amount to do anything with. Good. Oh, I want to go to payments. So on my payments tab, you can either add a payment or a prepayment. So that would just be a prepayment that you got ahead. So it's pretty easy. You just click on the button and you're just receiving in funds is all you're doing. And it just attaches it.
So the prepayment just shows they paid in prior to the actual shipping, or will that just hold the funds? I mean, we want to make sure we collect the money.
Right. So this is actually accepting funds against that sales order.
Okay.
Because it's not a deposit, it's an actual prepayment.
Okay.
You're not hanging on to it, right, until you ship it. You're actually taking the money and putting it in the bank.
Right. And my pocket, yeah.
Yeah.
In the pocket, yeah.
Right. So it's not a deposit. You actually want to receive it in. This is what you would use, would be the prepayment.
So we make sure the order doesn't go out until the payment comes in.
Correct. Yep. And you, of course, you would change this, right? This is the full amount of what I just put in. So you'd maybe put like 300 or whatever, and then just make sure it's applied down here.
Oh, that was the deposit of.
Pardon?
That's if they're paying a deposit.
No, this would be if they're making a prepayment. If they were making it, yeah, if they were making just like a deposit on an order, I would probably do like another line item for a deposit. Because you just want the deposit to go to a different count. That's really the only difference in it, is you just want it going to different GL accounts. And so you can do it either way. Do you sometimes take deposits and you just hold on to them? Like you don't actually recognize it as revenue?
No, we'll put it in.
No, it'll go right in.
It goes right in, yeah. So those are prepayments. So that's not a problem at all. Anything else on the sales order side?
The ship, I saw your printing of your labels, the packing slips too are printed there too?
Yep. Yep. So that's from your shipments page. You can print your pack slip.
Okay.
All right. So let's just look at inventory here. So I'm going to go to stock items. So this is things that you actually hold in your warehouse. Just want to show you how one of these is set up. So let's just look at the actual frame. And I did a little bit of copying and pasting. Obviously, it wouldn't be in the classification of computers. So yeah. All you do is set up your inventory ID, and this can be whatever size you want. You can segment it if you want to. You put in your description. You can set up these different classifications for different types of products. So we have tons of different things in here. We have computers and food and candy and like all different kinds of these. They're all different item classes. And basically what these item classes are doing is they're setting all your default values. So when you go to create a new stock item, you don't have to fill in all the detail. You just select the appropriate class and it's going to fill in all these different fields for you. We have a few different valuation methods. Do you guys know what you're using for inventory valuation right now?
No.
Nope. Probably average, I'm guessing. But we do give you quite a few options. So you can use standard, average, FIFO, or specific, whatever is going to work best for your business. Do you do any lot or serial number tracking?
Right now, what we're doing is we're just barcoding each individual item, and we're keeping track of each barcode.
So that's basically like your serial number, right? Because they're all unique.
Yeah.
It's not like a lot where you give all these products a lot number. Okay, so we can actually track those serial numbers for you. And this is very configurable. So there's quite a few different ways to use our lot and serial numbers. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Just wanted to make this a little bigger here. So basically you can set up these different, why do I keep doing that? These different lot and serial numbers pretty much any way you want to. So you'll notice there's an assignment method for each one and an issue method. So you can decide, for example, when you apply your serial numbers. So most of my serial numbers, we assign it when they're received in, but for example, on this one, we're only going to assign it when they're sending it out. And then the issue method just says, which one are we going to pull? Are we just going to, is it going to be sequential? Using FIFO, is the user just going to enter the serial number? How do we want to actually set up that serial number? So you have a lot of flexibility. You can set up different ways of using serial numbers for different items. So a lot of flexibility built in there for you. And then you can run reports so you can see like which serial numbers you actually have in inventory, which ones are available, things like that. This is what I was talking about on your unit of measure. So you can have many, many different units of measure. If there's a conversion, you can set it up right down here, right? So you could say, a box of 10, whatever, you multiply by 10, things like that. And you can have as many of these as you want. I could just keep adding on down here, and I could have as many as I want. I don't actually need those. I'm going to get rid of them. All right, so all of these different tabs that you see going across the middle of my page here, it's all information about this specific item. So if you guys grow and you have multiple warehouses, you'd be able to just go to like your warehouse details, see where that item is. Vendor details, going to tell me who I actually buy this from. You can set your default vendor, but there could be a whole bunch of different vendors that you actually buy from. If you wanted to, you guys probably wouldn't use attributes too much, but I was going to say if you wanted to attach a picture, you can include pictures, things like that. Make sure people know what you're talking about. But probably the most important tab is over here on this replenishment information, because this is what the system is going to use to calculate which items need to be purchased at any particular point in time. So from here you can set things like, safety stock levels, and this probably isn't the best example because I think all your frames are custom, right?
We'll have standard size.
Okay, so this would be like, an example of something you keep in stock, or things like, the screws and the clips and whatnot that you want to maintain at a certain level. So you can set up, your safety stock and reorder points, max quantities. We also have this demand forecast model, and this will take into account the average sale of an item over a particular period of time. So as well as looking at your safety stock levels and all of these, it will also take into consideration sales for a particular time period. So in my example, I'm going back 6 months, but you could go back as far as you want, or you could say I only want to go back a couple of weeks. So it's entirely up to you. But it's just another way to kind of factor in more numbers into your calculation for what you need to replenish. Certainly don't have to use it, but the demand forecast model is there if you want to use it. So based on all of these parameters, the system will give you purchase suggestions, and this information is all available in my inventory workspace. We have a header down here for replenishment, and I just go to prepare replenishment. And I do it by warehouse. So if you just have one warehouse, you wouldn't have to come up here and identify the warehouse. And this is showing me what I probably need to be purchasing at this particular point in time. But keep in mind, this is just purchase advice. It's certainly not, you know, cast in stone. This is absolutely what you have to buy. You know about other factors outside of what the system does, so you can still choose which items to queue up for purchasing. You could come in here and change these quantities, or you could just decide you don't want to purchase some of these, whatever the case. And you could be selective again, because this is using our processes section. So I can say I want to queue up these two for purchasing, but not this one, right? And then just click on process, or I could click process all. If you have real, you know, very regular purchasing, you could just come up here and set this up on an automated schedule. Just depends on what works best for you. So when I click on process, what this does is it just says, okay, this is what I've decided needs to be purchasing, and it pushes it out to the purchasing side of your house for the actual purchasing process. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on process, and I'll show you on the purchasing side what this actually does. So we have these two items. If I go over here to purchases, I can come down here. Again, I'm using this processes section, and I'm going to go over here to create purchase orders. So now I've kind of put on my purchasing hat, and you can see here's those two items that we decided we needed to replenish. And you can see right here it says inventory replenishment. That's why it's there. If we had had something like a drop ship that we needed to create a purchase order for, that would show up here too. Do you guys ever do drop ships?
We plan on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We haven't
All right.
yet, but we plan on it. And if they're willing to pay for it, we'll drop ship it.
All right, perfect. So if drop ships were here, it would just queue it right up. You'd put in the sales order and it would just automatically show up right here. Also, if you ever do sales orders, like you're gonna place an order with a vendor specifically to cover a particular sales order, we call it purchased order, that would also be queued up right here. And you know, you could have a great big long list and it's going to create all of these purchase orders for you. So pretty nice way of automating it. Again, you can use that automated schedule. So just every so often your purchase orders automatically get created. I'm going to go ahead and just create this one because I kind of want to walk you through just the whole process of purchase orders. So this is going to bring up just the one purchase order that I chose to make. So this is my purchase order. You can see it came in a status of on hold. So this is completely optional. You certainly don't have to have your purchases start out on hold. A lot of people like to use this just so you review it. You can't send it off to the vendor too quick, accidentally fire off that email when you didn't mean to. But when I take this off hold, you can see it goes to a status of pending approval. And this is also optional. Do you guys put your purchase orders through any kind of approval, or do you want to?
At a certain point, yeah, we will.
Okay. So in Acumatica, it's pretty easy. We have what we call approval maps, and it's really just it's really like a little map where you just say, you know, here's the condition and then send it to this person. So probably the most popular one is, you know, for purchase orders under $10,000, route it to person A. For purchase orders over $10,000, route it to person B. You can also set up tiers, so it would have to go like to person A, then person B, or you could send it to both of them at the same time. There's a lot of flexibility in that approval process. If you are an authorized approver, you're someone who's going to approve purchase orders or sales orders or whatever item you're looking at in Acumatica, you're going to be able to see those items needing approval. There's an approval page in Acumatica. You can also see them on a dashboard, and you can also use our mobile app to do approvals. Doesn't matter where you go to look at your approvals, there's always going to be a link, and when you click on that link, it's going to take you right back to this transaction. And from here, it's pretty straightforward. When you go up to the actions button, the only possible options are approve or reject. So if you come in here as an approver, those are your options. Since I'm logged in as an admin, I can override it, and I'm just going to go ahead and approve it. And you can see now, oh,
Nancy,
sorry, go ahead.
Can that also be set up for, waiting for payment? Approval upon payment?
Yes. But for a purchase order?
Well, sales order.
Yeah, so on the sales order side, you could do that. Yep. So you would just have a little configuration change on your statuses, and you would just add in like a waiting for payment status.
So
Okay.
Rick, Rick, what you're saying is if, let's say, ABC wants to order 5,000 feet of light coat, but they still owe us for 10,000 feet, we're not shipping it until they pay?
Right. Some customers we might, want all the payment up front, some partial or whatever. Depending on the customer too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a good point, Rick. Good point.
Yep, so I would envision that well, of course it would be on a sales order, not on a purchase order, but I would just envision your statuses. You'd have a few different statuses than what you're seeing just out of the box, but things like that are pretty easy to configure.
All right, Nancy, question for you.
Sure.
Now, you said this is all role-based. So let's say like our accounting department, we have an AR and AP. They would get just those particular areas. If we have an inventory person or a warehouse manager per se, he would access only to the inventory field, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yes. So like if you were, let's say I'm an AR clerk, I would not even see this workspace for inventory. I wouldn't even see purchases. I wouldn't see sales orders. I would probably just see well, if it's a payables clerk, right? They would probably see payables and maybe the finance workspace, or maybe just certain things on the finance workspace they'd have access to. So you can be very, very specific as to which users have access to which pieces of the application.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so we were creating this purchase order. It's just sitting here in the status of open. It's just waiting for us to receive in these items. I could, of course, come up here and I could email this off to my vendor. I can also use the processes section to automate that. So if it's sitting out here needing to be emailed, it would just automatically get emailed off. When the goods come in, again, it's just under the Actions tab. I just go to Enter PO Receipt. And this is going to queue it up. So I can say maybe it was a partial order. I could specify that. So this is my purchase receipt. So you can see my receipt quantity. If I had received partial, I could just come in here and change it to the correct amount. One thing I do want to point out is right here in the middle. See how we have this create bill field? So if you have the bill in hand when you receive the goods, all you have to do is put in the vendor invoice number, check this field, and at the same time that you're receiving in the goods, you'll automatically create that AP bill. So a lot less data entry. The other thing that you can do right from here is if you have any landed costs that you know about at the time, you could just go ahead and add in like any freight charges. You can also put in an estimate. And then if you check this box, you would actually create the bill later, but you can put in an estimate. Do you guys have a lot of landed costs that you're recording?
Yeah, freight.
Yeah.
Yeah, like freight. Do you import anything where you have to track customs duties, anything like that?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay. So this is how you would do it. And of course, you can always do it after the fact, but if you do have that information right up front, you can put it in right as you're receiving the goods.
So you
So
can put
either,
an estimate there and then change it to the actual later.
correct. Yep, you just have to check this box over here on the far right.
Mhm.
And then it just puts it into a variance account when you put in the actual.
Okay.
All right. So you'll notice right now, this is in a status of balanced, just meaning this hasn't actually been posted yet. In Acumatica, when you see this release button, that's the equivalent of post to the GL. So I'm going to just click on release to actually post this. And what's happening is it's creating both of these transactions. So it's receiving my goods into inventory, but it's also going over to the AP side and creating this vendor bill based on the information I put right here in the middle. So one thing I want to point out about transactions that hit the GL, you can always use this financial details tab. Well, and this is a bad example because this is a two-sided transaction, but this financial details tab will always bring you to a drill down so that you can get to the original journal entry. In this case, since we had two sides, we created the bill and we received in the goods, we can get to them right from up here. So even if I'm on my purchase receipt and I want to see what that AP bill looks like, I can just come out here and go look at my bill. So this is the bill. It was automatically created for me. And I mentioned this financial details tab. At the very top, you'll always see this hyperlink, right? So this is just a hyperlink that takes me out to the journal entry that was created. And I can do the same thing on the other side of my equation. So if I go back to my inquiries, I can see the inventory document that was created. So here's the actual receipt. And again, we have that financial details tab, so I can easily get right down to the journal entry that was created. Any questions on the inventory side or the purchasing side? I know I went through that a little fast.
No, I agree. It looks good. Yeah, everything looks a lot better than
Okay.